So I knew he'd wipe out my whole king side with queen salvo right away. And so I just was fascinated by the game from that time. I was 10 years old. I had just turned 10. I think I'm going to write it in Spanish because I felt that Spanish lent itself more to the types of things that I wanted to say to him.
Mm.
The father homeschooled his three girls, sometimes 6-7 hours a day just on chess. But guess what? It's the strongest chess siblings in the history of the game ever. Chess teaches you to make decisions. Got to make decisions sometimes under some very tough circumstances and sometimes in a very short period of time too. Decision making is one of the things that chess teaches young people. You've got to, whether it's a good move, a bad move, or a medium move, you've still got to make that move. Just get started, just play, just dive in there. And then things will start to come into focus.
Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I'm here with an awesome guest today, somebody I've gotten to know over the last little while, John Adair. How are you doing?
Doing well, George. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast today. And so
we've had some interesting conversations, and we got a topic that might come out of a little left field for people, but amazing strategies and tactics you can take from it, no matter whether you're listening as a business owner or you're trying to create your life. So let me give a little bit of an introduction here of our guest. John's a writer, a poet, lifelong lover of chess. He began playing chess at 10 years old, taught by his father and stepfather, and he's competed in U.S. Chess Federation tournaments, and he wrote the book. He's an author, and he wrote a book, Chess Basics, which has an English and a Spanish edition. He's got a couple other books, a really good one on quotations that's coming up. But today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about chess fundamentals and timeless strategies that can inspire you not only to play better, but sharpen your thinking in business and life. So we're really, really glad to have you here, John. Maybe what you could do is give us a little bit of your backstory, kind of where did you come from and how did you come up to this? Because usually, a lot of listeners are like, backstory, we get a lot of story on a lot of different people, but you got a very interesting backdrop to why you wrote this book. So bring us up to speed with why you did this.
Sure. I guess it was back in 2020 that my brother gets a call when I should give you the backdrop. We were in full COVID mode. We were in lockdown mode. Nobody was doing anything. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So Georgia was really eerie. They had the whole city locked down.
Yeah.
It was during COVID. Got a call from my brother one day, Dan. He lives about 3 houses down from me at that time. And he says, Aiden is starting to play chess. Well, Aiden is his grandson. He was 10 years old at the time. And as you've just stated, that's the same age I was when I started to play chess. I was 10 years old, but I go, get out of town. Aiden's playing chess. He goes, yeah, and he's really good, supposedly. So that just got my wheels turning. We were on lockdown. We weren't working. My brother had started a tour company here in Las Vegas called Mr. Las Vegas Tours. He had sold that company, but I was one of his drivers there, working part-time anyway. But we weren't working. So I decided to write a little tutorial for my grandnephew, Aiden, who I positively adore. I should tell you, Aiden was a very, very bright kid. When he was over here, they dropped Aiden over for me to take care of him. Dan and his wife were going out to town or whatever. But I would give him these toothpick geometric forms. They were problems. They were problems that needed to be solved. I gave him probably 3 or 4 over a 2-year period. Well, Aiden had always solved them, but they kept getting harder as they went along. I remember the hardest one that I had given to him. He had been working on it for about 25 minutes. Remember, this is like an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, you're challenging him.
Yeah. And I went up to him. He's sitting over in the living room behind me. And I said, Aiden, do you want me to tell you the answer? And he looks up at me. His eyes were watery. He goes, no, Uncle John, no, I don't want you to tell me. Okay, that's fine. And anyway, he solved it about 10 minutes later. This was a very tough geometric toothpick problem, right? So anyway, with that in mind, I wanted to write for him a little tutorial it turned out to be about 68 pages long. It was just basic stuff that I had learned when I was playing chess, and it was some stuff in there I wish that other people had told me, as I was going up
Yeah.
the ladder. So anyway, I put it together. It was just some basic stuff about chess. I tried to break it up into some lessons. It came out to about 68 pages. I went to one of the local Kinkos. I had it spiral bound, put a nice plastic page on the front. And it just so happened, I think my brother had announced this to me in July. The family was coming out to visit with grandpa. They were coming out in December for Christmas holidays. And I finished it just in time to give it to his mother, my niece Krista. I said, "This is for Aiden." So she was looking through it. She goes, "Wow, Uncle John, this is just fantastic." She says, "Are you thinking about publishing it?" And George, the truth be told, that was the furthest. It never even entered my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. You were just loving it. Yeah.
I was just loving it. And so anyway, gave it to Aiden. He was very appreciative and was looking at it right away. I think we played a game shortly after that, showing him some stuff. But anyway, I went back home after that experience, George, and I looked and I thought about what my niece had said about publishing it. And the truth be told, there was no way on God's green earth that I could have published the unedited book in that form,
Yeah.
riddled with typos, all kinds of stuff that could have been written much tighter, and so on and so forth. But I let it sit for about 6 months, and I think about 6 months later, I decided to rewrite one of the chapters in there, one of the lessons, and it came out really, really good. And that got me to wanting to rewrite and actually expand it to 10 lessons. And that started the launch really of writing the chess book that is now called Chess Basics. It's
Yeah,
about
it's interesting because it's interesting how it came about, and there's principles in this I really want to make sure people understand. So I want to unpack it for them a minute. So I got a couple questions that came to mind for me. Number one, you grew up and you were drawn to this game in the first place, right? So there's
that's
people that
right.
are out there that have passions for things that, first of all, they would never have any clue could turn into anything successful like this. So
Right.
I'm curious first, what drew you to chess? And, how did that kind of shape your life over the years? What was the reason that you had been drawn to it and sort of had this passion and expertise, which I like to call uniqueness, to
Yes.
chess?
Yeah, good question. But yeah, I saw my dad. My dad would come over. They had already divorced. My mom and dad had already divorced several years before. But my mom always stayed friends with him, and he would come over. Usually it was to pick us up and take us to a movie, and back then it was like either a John Wayne Western or a Jerry Lewis comedy movie. But um, sometimes he would sit down with my stepfather and play a game of chess. Well, I was fascinated by I didn't even know how the pieces moved, but I was looking at them. And of course, I learned how the pieces move by watching them play. So, after several months of watching them play, every time he would come over, he would play a game with my stepfather. I begged my dad to play a game. I knew some of the basics already, how to move the pieces, and he would always wipe me out in about 4 or 5 moves. He
Yeah,
always
best lessons there. Yeah.
came out with the queen real quick, and I go, oh, holy moly! So I knew he'd wipe out my whole king side with the queen salvo right away. And so I just was fascinated by the game from that time. I was 10 years old. I had just turned 10. And I think it kind of just grew out of that. It was kind of a slow passion. I would play with friends that knew how to play, or I would go up to strangers and stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I just had a passion for the game. And then as it went along, I kept learning and then started reading books, started analyzing my games, that kind of stuff.
It's what's interesting, and it's a note that if you're listening to this episode is a really cool core lesson, and that is there are things in life that you're naturally drawn to, and you were drawn to that, you had a passion for it, and but you continue to pursue it, and a lot of people don't. And then
That's
all of a
right.
sudden, this opportunity came up for you to write this booklet for your grandnephew, and it
Right.
turned into something that you went further with, and then turned into an opportunity. So I'm curious what made you decide to go that extra level and create the book because you did this for him. That was your purpose. You
Right.
did it. You
Right.
got some good feedback, but you also I'm curious what made you decide to go down this route of being a writer and writing the book? Because then you're now
Right.
doing other writing. What
Yeah.
kind of pivoted in your life that made you want to become a writer, not just this, person that's passionate about chess?
Right. I think a good question. I think I always had a passion for writing from an early age too. I don't think it started at 10 years old. It started probably a little bit later, like around 14 or 15, when I was in grade school. At that time, George, I was going to a small little grade school over in the San Fernando Valley. It's called Dixie Canyon Avenue School. But here's a little story that it just came to mind right now. There wa in Our teacher asked us to, write book reports,
Hmm.
right? And they said there was no limit on the book reports that you could write during the class during the semester, right? So anyway, there was usually I found out there was always the girls were the brightest one in the class. It was always that girl over in the corner, and she was the smartest one. Anyway, long story short, I actually wrote 21 book reports for that class when I was in the 5th grade
Oh, wow.
at Dixie Canyon Avenue School. Well, the next closest person to me, I think, was at 9 book reports. So I always had a thing for, and it started developing, I think, a little bit later for me, like when I was about 14 or 15, writing. And I'd
Yeah.
write silly little things, and you're forcing in the teachers and professors later would always want your class assignments. But I think in my senior year of high school is when it really started kicking in. I would offer friends to write a letter. They had to write a letter. I don't want to write a letter.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a letter to some.
Yeah.
I said, let me help you with that letter. So
Yeah.
I just had
Well,
a
and I
passion
think you
for writing.
mentioned to me when we talked before that, there was a point where the loss of your brother also kind of helped you use that as an opportunity to kind of turn to writing as a way of healing. And I just had a Franklin Planner podcast we did the other day where we talk about the power of writing and things like that. So I just thought it was an interesting thing to add is you've got this unique talent and passion for writing and chess, but you really at this point for your grandnephew and then with the loss of your brother, it really turned into something that you utilized. Compound that with COVID, right?
Right.
That helped you, correct?
That's right, George. And I started with my brother, as you mentioned, after the loss of my brother back in 2000, actually 1996. We lost our brother Robert, and we were all hurting as a family. My mother was totally destroyed. And one of the things, I wrote a letter to my brother. I started to write a letter to my brother. And then I said, well, you know what? I think I'm going to write it in Spanish because I felt that Spanish lent itself more to the types of things that I wanted to say to him.
Mm, got it.
And so I started to do that started feeling good, started feeling better. And then it kind of turned into a poem in Spanish with like 24 stanzas. Took me 2 years and 9 months to write. My Spanish was a little bit rusty back
Mm,
then. So I had to up my game. But after the whole project was finished, it did bring me a great deal of inner calm and relief and acceptance, I guess, in lack of
well,
a
there's a
better
lot to
word.
be said for just that power of writing, and I think that
Yeah,
people, whether it's in their life or business or anything else, whether that's a natural talent or not, there's a big healing power in that. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
so let's pivot and turn our focus for a minute to the book because the book isn't just a bunch of fundamentals and lessons. And I was really surprised to see just the massive size of the chess industry, both players and tournaments and things. Like I thought of it as like, oh, that's a game people play, but man, this is a major, major industry. And as you start to dig in, you start to realize the strategy and the techniques and those types of things. So talk to me about the book itself
sure.
because chess has so many different ways to be applied in life, but just the book itself and how you put it
Sure.
together and what it does.
Sure. Thank you. George, one of the things that my book, and this is going to sound funny to you, one of the things that sets it apart, I would say 98 out of 100 chess books out there do not have something so simple as a vocabulary section.
Mm,
Do not have that. I wanted a vocabulary section in there that brings in culture and the lingo and everything. So now you're absorbing chess culture. And it's about, and my vocabulary section is about 3 pages. Now I looked at some book, a dusty old chess book that I had in the closet. The guy did have a vocabulary section in there. It's a total joke. It's stuff that you would never use in a million years. It has some stuff about the German Chess Federation. Who needs? So I wanted stuff that had to do with tactics and strategy that could be applied, and a chess player could talk about that with another chess player and be understood. So I wanted to bring chess culture to the book. So I do have a 3-page just alone on vocabulary. Another section that I have is just some very, very chess basic. In the book, one of the things I mentioned there, you see a lot of chess games that are illustrated maybe in a magazine that kind of
Mm.
sell tequila or a drink or a cigarette, whatever. And it never ceases to amaze me to see the chessboard set up incorrectly, where you'll have a black square in the right-hand corner of
Oh,
the
wow.
chessboard. And chess books never address that. Maybe it's so simple, but my book is dedicated to beginning players. But
Mm.
this is basic. White square in the right-hand corner. That's absolutely basic. It's the setup of the king and queen. What's the rule for how they set up in the middle? You
So
know,
you have this setup of vocabulary and chess basics, which means
yeah.
anybody and everybody can get it. But I thought it was also interesting that your book highlights great players, quotes from legends, even a tribute to Bobby Fischer. Like what you really did add a lot of context to this book. So keep going. What else is in it?
Yeah, yeah. So, like you said, I have these great player profiles. I've met some of the great players there. I've actually had small interactions with them. One of them was a Russian grandmaster that I talk about in the
Wow.
book. Well, it's because of the fact that I did meet him. We did press flesh. I did follow one of his games at a chess tournament. Eddie Gufeld, who himself was a giant in the chess world, wrote over 100 books, visited over 80 countries through his lifetime. So anyway, I have some highlights on him. Magnus Carlsen, who just stepped down as the reigning world champion. He held that position for, I think it was 10 years or 12 years, but he
Mm.
just recently stepped down. I think it was in 24. I talk about him. I talk about a woman chess master. What a fascinating story that is. The father homeschooled his 3 girls, sometimes 6, 7 hours a day just on chess. But guess what? It's the strongest chess siblings in the history of the game ever. The
Well,
Paul,
there's so many parallels of chess to life and business and strategy,
yeah,
and so it is interesting. As I kind of went down the rabbit hole with you on this, the interesting facts that I learned and the size and scope of it. But you also decided to write an English and a Spanish edition. What made you decide to do the Spanish edition?
right. So the publishers had contacted me after the English book had already come out. It was already published on Amazon, and we are getting some sales and whatnot. The publishers contacted me, and they said, "John, you know what? I should mention that the publishers was all Latino group. It
Mm,
was true Latina women that own the company. They have a staff of 7, including 2 PhDs on the staff."
mm.
And so we had hit it off from the beginning, but she says to me one day, she goes, "John, we'd love to publish your book in Spanish." Well, I'm from the Spanish culture. My mother was born in Argentina. I said, "I think that's a fantastic idea." And so anyway, we went with the Spanish edition. It took about almost close to a year. They wanted to get it right, the translation and everything. I said, "It's probably going to come out thicker." I said, her name is Indiana. I said, Spanish usually takes some more words to say the same thing than it does in English. But it came out, I think it was just like a couple pages longer. But they did an excellent job. They wanted to do it. I just asked one favor of the publishers. I said, I had written a piece before just for the fun of it on Mexico's very first international grandmaster, a gentleman by the
Mm.
name of Carlos Torre. I just wanted them to include that piece in the book, which would have been an addition. And they said, "We'd love to do that." And so we added that one 8-page article on Carlos Torre.
Yeah, it is fascinating to me, and I think when people are listening to this, they're hearing things about, you've got this passion you leaned into, you had this opportunity to go down the road, and just the scope that this taken because you leaned into that. And there's a whole direct, indirect correlation to chess and strategy and life and business and stuff as well. But
Right.
I think it's a great testament to what's happening, and it's through that process that you've also now really embrace the authorship of writing books and things as well. So it's a great testament.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because you mentioned before that life, like chess, requires a lot of strategy and purpose and things. What lessons have you really taken from this in life? And maybe there's are young chess players out there, or individuals, even entrepreneurs and business owners. Like, what is it that you feel is such a parallel that you would say about this?
Yeah, I would say, and I think Magnus Carlsen would agree with this too. He's probably now he's the highest rated player ever in the history of the game. He's the one that was world champion for 10 years. He, well, his one of his teachers for 1 year was the Russian grandmaster Garry Kasparov. So he was
Oh,
his. But anyway, I think I do agree with him. Chess teaches you to make decisions.
mm,
Got to make decisions sometimes under some very tough circumstances, and sometimes in a very short period of time too. That's another thing about chess that some people may not understand or realize, is that when you go to a tournament, these are clocked events. You're playing against, you can't just sit there for 2 hours and think, you're,
that's an uncomfortable situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're playing for time, and you press the clock, that activates the other guy's. He presses the clock, it activates your clock, and the clock is going tick tock, tick tock. So you got to come up. So I think decision making is one of the things that just teaches young people. You've got to, whether it's a good move, a bad move, or a medium move, you still got to make that move. So
Yeah.
decision making is one of the parallels in life. And I have some great quotes under the success and winning in the book that have to do with decision making. That's one of the criteria, one of the elements that makes successful people successful.
Yeah, there's so many because, thinking strategically, thinking many moves ahead, knowing where you're going. This isn't a random game, putting yourself into uncomfortable situations and
Right.
making decisions, because decisiveness for entrepreneurs is a big thing as well. So I'm curious, for somebody who maybe is just learning chess, right? They're like, "Ah, that game sounds so complicated." And I mean, I just play it,
Right.
but whatever.
Yes.
Because it does require a little bit of strategy and things like that, or they're hesitant. Let's say somebody wants to learn chess, or they're hesitant. What are the first principles or mindset shifts that they need to adopt to kind of get started into that game?
Yeah, sure. I would say just to just really play. I was asking somebody, one of the my neighbors is about 4 houses down. She bought the book, and she's had me meet some friends of hers, but came over with their son. That they bought a book and saw. But I said, Linda, just set up the board, just play, just
Mm.
actually do a simple game. Even if you get wiped out in 5 moves, just start playing. That's the beauty of the game.
What a great lesson in life, right? Most people just don't start.
Yeah, yeah. Just get started. Just play. Just dive in there, and then things will start to come into focus. Then, of course, if you read my book, or any chess book for that matter, you start applying some of those principles that are in there, and things start to come together. You go, "Oh, yeah, I never thought about that."
Yeah. It's you're a great example. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is you're a great example of somebody who took their passion, leaned into it, created some opportunity around it, and then it actually took you down the path. And I wasn't going to do this on this interview, but I wanted to actually, I made a note here to ask you. This led you into this book of quotations that you're going to be doing,
Right.
and it's a curated book of quotations. Let's be very
Good word.
specific, because
Good word.
I think this is going to be a real big hit. But you've chosen this and kind of collected these over the last, gosh, I don't know, like what, 24 years or something. You've been
Yeah,
doing it
that's
since
right.
2000.
Yeah, that's
How do,
right.
how how has this helped kind of shape things that you're doing? Because I think a lot of people are hesitant to lean into the things they love, and they don't realize that stuff they're doing can turn into opportunity for themselves. So talk to me just a minute about this book that's going to be coming out here real soon.
Yeah, sure. So I think once again, you got a passion for something, and I like the way you say it, leaning into it. And the thing, this particularly started with a visit to my daughter. She lives over in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And on the last day of the visit, I was out there for 3 or 4 days. She says, "Dad, I got a surprise. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but well, anyway, she invited me to go see the new Paralympic Museum over in Colorado Springs, Colorado." So we went there, and I was just blown away. It was really well done. It's a huge, huge building. And I could tell that they had, they got professional curators in there to do on this museum. You just tell by the layout and everything. But there was some they'd have these huge, like 4 or 5 times the size of a normal person,
Yeah.
but they'd have the person up there, the cutout, then this quote underneath it. I go, this is just, some
Inspiring.
of them are just fantastic quotes that you don't see in the everyday. So anyway, long story short, I came away with probably 10 or 11 great quotes. First, when I got back home, that led me to investigate some other people from previous Olympics. And, so next thing you know, I got like 20 quotes now just in the sports realm there alone. So it started with that. And when I got the new quotes, I went back to the notebook that I had of these collected quotes, and I started adding them. And I said, wait a second, why don't I just write a book on these? Because these are, and plus what I had from the previous 20 some odd years, these are just fantastic quotes. And they're in all realms too. Some Zen, motivational thinking, success and winning. Now you got the sports stuff added
Yeah.
in there, so different categories. So I said, God, probably should write a book. This is fantastic stuff. I was getting a little bit of feedback from some people too. What I found out, George, too, and you probably found this out yourself, everybody loves a great quote.
Yeah. They really do they are the things that people turn to, especially if you looked online, like they turn to when they're looking for inspiration and motivation, and they're looking
That's right.
for because they
That's right.
can also relate it. There's always a story behind it and things like this. And that's a powerful tool if you're whether you're
Right.
building a business, living your life or whatever, quotes really are a tool for you.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And it's surprising to me. It actually did sneak up on me and kind of surprised me. The level of enthusiasm and acceptance of, I was down at the supermarket one day and I was talking to the lady, the clerk there, and you're going to write a book on quote. What? She almost started salivating. I love quote. She got
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
I go, this
Yeah.
is the girl at the supermarket.
Yeah.
And so I had, but I
Isn't this
had,
crazy how passionate like this is why like people wouldn't think about quotes, chess, things like this, but that's why I say I can't say it enough. Like you've shared this advice before. It's like find your purpose, and if you can't do that, follow your passion. And
right.
so I really love that, and I love what you've been doing. And I'm curious, if you had to sort of leave the audience with a piece of advice or wisdom about life, learning, legacy, something like that. I try to ask this of most of our guests. What would your advice be?
Get involved, uh, stay involved, do different stuff, get uncomfortable, go before a group and speak. What do they say? It's the number one fear, most people.
Yeah.
I joined a council. I was actually elected to a council in Los Angeles, and I had to get up before people and speak. Yes, you got butterflies in your stomach and everything. Just do it. Get out there. Do stuff that's uncomfortable for you. Push yourself out into different stuff. But I think the main thing I would tell people, get involved, and that's true. Follow your passion. If
Yeah.
you have a passion, follow it. Um, a lot of times that'll
Well,
take
and
you right into your purpose too.
yeah, and that's why, like, I love how you said that. Actually, get involved in life.
That's right.
You've had, uh, uh, multiple careers and this type of thing, and who would have known if you hadn't have been involved in life how things would have turned the chess basics and the quote book and stories and memories and things with your family and that is probably one of the best pieces of advice because so many people, especially entrepreneurs and business owners and people they're trying to create their life and do their thing and they want to find that thing. But success leaves clues. Happiness and purpose drive things, but you'll never find that if you don't just get involved. I love that.
Yeah, you got to get out there, get involved, to stay focused, to get out there. Absolutely.
And I know we
Um,
got a little off topic with the
yeah,
chess basics, but
yeah.
I want to make sure that if people want to or they've thought about how they could use a topic like this, get involved in chess and things, what's the easiest way for them to do that? Would it be to go to Amazon? And we can certainly put those links in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. You go to Amazon if they want to purchase my book. Go to Amazon, purchase the book Chess Basics, or the Spanish version, which is Conceptos Básicos del ajedrez. So it's the same
Love it.
book, but just in Spanish. But to get involved, if people want to get involved in chess, I would definitely turn them loose on YouTube. There's a universe of stuff out there. They can watch games. They can watch games. They can see interviews with these chess masters. Like you said earlier, and you said something very interesting, George. You said you were just blown away, I guess, at the chess culture
Massive
out
size.
there.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, with the interviews and the tournaments and these things and the grandmasters and everything. You're right. It's a whole universe out there that people would be surprised to find out. I'm sure there's the same thing with people with doing quilting. Probably a whole little universe out there. But with chess, I would direct them to YouTube to get started to get yourself a good book. Go to YouTube, see some of these chess masters talk about basic principles to a class. Maybe they're even up there with the blackboard. Maybe they're discussing stuff and they got the chessboard over to the left. You can see the pieces moving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, most of these guys that are on YouTube, I have to say, are really positively just fantastic teachers and tutors. That's just one
And
company.
strategists. Yeah.
And strategists. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, it does really bring to, people wouldn't think that this is that, but there may be passions that they have and things that they're doing that they don't realize how big the world is for things. And so, and you aren't until you get in there. But I have learned some things from chess, and I think the strategy, the involvement, things like that have makes a big difference for you in every area of your life. So
I think so. I think so. There's a lot of principles that you can take from the game of chess, adapt it to the game of life, if you will.
yeah.
And you're asking, you were talking a little while ago, I think it was Charlie of all people. He gave me the name. There's a couple people that really influenced and mentored him when he was coming along. One of them was a coach, basketball coach, college basketball coach, Don Meyer. Don
Mm,
Meyer. And he had some fantastic quotes, but one of them is life is what is it? Is a team sport.
yeah.
Team sport. You got to get out there. You got to get that out
Yeah, and
and do it.
I think there's so many lessons to be learned, but the success is is clues in all this stuff, and that's why people need to do it. Well, I certainly appreciate having you on, and for those of you that are listening, I want you to take away a few different lessons, and definitely connect with John. I'll put a bunch of the links in the show notes so you can do that. But look, it's never too late to start living the life you were meant to live, the one that you want to live. But you do need to get out there. You got to get involved. You've got to take action. And so hopefully this has kind of inspired you a
Yeah.
little bit to do that and giving you some strategies and tactics at the same time. Is there anything else that you want to leave our guests with?
Absolutely. You skip out there a little. Uh, uh, oh, there we go. Okay, we're
I
back now.
lost you. So let's do that again because I can clip that part out.
Sure.
So
Okay.
so John, is there anything else you want to leave our guests with before we take off?
Yeah, absolutely. In the book, both the English and Spanish versions, there's a nice tribute to Bobby Fischer in there. He was my favorite player growing up. Of course, you you had the backdrop of the Cold War going on between the United States and the Soviet Union. That's the backdrop. What a backdrop to have, right? And so he was pressure was building up, and he had to play Boris Spassky from the Soviet Union. And but anyway, I have a nice tribute in there to Bobby Fischer. Been working on that piece probably for about 15 years. I redid it. I published that piece many, many years ago, but then I redid it for the book, and it came out really nice. But for the Spanish edition, I have a nice tribute for Mexico's very first chess grandmaster. His name is Carlos Torre.
Mm,
He's quite an incredible person, George. Picture a 20-year-old Mexican kid who had moved to the United States from Mexico when he was 10 years old. So all of his main formative years in his childhood was in the United States, New Orleans. Now he's a 20-year-old kid. He goes to Moscow in 1925, huge international tournament. All the greatest players in the world are there. And his round, I think it was the round 11, He's up against a former world champion, not any world champion. He's up against Emmanuel Lasker, who still to this date has the record for the longest championship, 20, just shy of 27 years.
Oh, wow.
That's 26 years, 10 months, and so many days. He's up against Emmanuel Lasker. Carlos had the white pieces, but he beats this former world master. And I tell in the article, just because don't think he was on any kind of decline. He stays strong for another 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
He was still the number 1 or 2 player in the world for the next 10 or 12 years. And Carlos Torre, this 20-year-old unknown Mexican kid, beats him in such an elegant and beautiful and convincing manner. So look for that article in the book. It's a great article. It tells a lot about chess history, chess culture. For even a non-chess player, you just want to read.
Pretty intense story. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty intense stuff. And then of course the piece on Bobby Fischer. Like I say, it's probably taken me about 15 years to write, but he was my favorite chess player, and he was one of my heroes when I was a teenager.
Wow. Yeah. So that just gives great examples of the entertainment value, the knowledge, the history, the stuff that's included in this book. So yeah, go check it out. We're super excited about it. I've learned a lot, and I hope that those of you that are listening really take some action in your life, follow your passions, do what you need to do. And like I said, let us know what you're doing. Share this episode, but hit us up on the Daily Mastermind. Let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Let us know what you're up to. And I appreciate you being here. So have an amazing day, and we will talk with you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, George. I really appreciate it.